Hi, welcome to Analytics for All. This is lesson 13 in our second module of our Python for Data Science course. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to connect to a MySQL server and learn how to work with the database connected that way using Python. Now, while there are a lot of different options of SQL database systems out there, or DBMSs, database management systems, uh, I'm choosing MySQL for a few main reasons. Number one, it's free. That's always a good reason. Number two, it is extremely easy to install. It's a simple wizard you install your work and find. Number three, it plays well with everyone, whether you're using a Mac OS, Linux, or if you're using Windows like I do. I have another parallel lesson on this on using SQL Server. I know the developer edition of that is free, and I suppose supposedly it's supposed to play well with Mac and Linux now, but I don't know. I've never tried it myself. But like I say, if you're not a Windows user, MySQL is a great tool. SQL itself, as long as the core ideas all kind of transfer over no matter which one you're using. So let's go ahead with MySQL. We're going to connect to it, play around. I'll show you how to work it. Let's go ahead and pop over into the notebook. Now, as with all my lessons, I have a full write-up on my website, analyticsforall.org. I'll put a link down in the description. And on this page, I've got some starting code for you here in case you've got a brand new instance of MySQL set up and you don't have it. So this little code snippet here will create a database called Sandbox for you, and it'll create a table that we can look at as we start to explore working with this. Now again, this isn't a SQL lesson. I just want to show you the code. If you put it in there and run it, you're going to end up down here with a database called Sandbox, which will have one table called employee ID. And this is what we're going to look at and play with. I've got some other lessons on SQL. Go ahead and check those out if you're kind of new to SQL. I'm going to be building a SQL course after I finish this Python course. But let's go ahead and pop into what you're here for, which is the Python, and let's go ahead and open up our notebook. All right, so the first thing you're going to need is to import the MySQL connector. If you have installed the Anaconda distribution, like I mentioned in my first lesson, and if you go back to my first lesson in the course, you'll find it. I'll put a link down in the description. You can install that. It comes with this installed. You don't need it. If not, you're going to have to do a pip or a conda install. If you're not sure how to do that, I'll put another link. I've got a video link down here, I believe. Hold on. If you go down in my lesson, if you scroll down, I'm sure I put it somewhere. Right here, video link, and I'll put it somewhere else too. There's the video link. And I'll put it also in our description. And this, if you go to minute 7-minute mark in that video, it'll take you how to use pip install and conda install. But let's go ahead. Let's say you've got it installed. We're going to import our SQL connector. And this right here is what you ever hear the phrase connection string? This is what a connection string is. We're sending a string of information to a connector so we can connect to the database. So what we're doing here, to follow this down, to make this pretty simple, I've got a host. So I'm giving it a name, MySQL connector connect, and then in parentheses I've got a host, which is my local host. Local host just means it's sitting on my local machine. It's installed on my computer. If you named your instance or if you're on a different server, you're going to have to provide a network path there. User, I created a user just so we can get in here called SA Ben, and SA is a common SQL administrator. It's a common term. And then I put a password in there. And if we go here, we're going to connect. And if anyone get any failure, you connected. Now we'll go down here to see if it works. So what I have to do, I have my connection now. That's my connection. Now I want to provide a cursor. A cursor is what lets me iterate through Python and send commands back and forth. So I'm going to name my cursor curse, and I'm going to say my connection.cursor with the method. And then the first thing I'm going to send is a cursor execute command that says show databases. And I can look at that by doing a quick for loop to look through, and it'll give me the list of all the databases. And if we go back really quick and pull up you'll see I've got a bunch of databases here. This is what it's providing me, is that list. So you may not have any in yours. A couple of these, I believe, come installed with MySQL, so you'll probably have a few in there yourself. But if not, make sure we got the sandbox. That's one we want to work on. All right, now we know we want to work on our sandbox. So we're going to add a new line to our connector. And it's going to be database equals sandbox. Pretty simple, huh? Notice each one of these lines is separated by a comma. And now we're going to go ahead and create our cursor again. Now we're going to show tables. I want a list of the tables in the sandbox only database. And it comes back one table, employee ID. All right, and that's the table we created with that code I gave you at the beginning. Now let's go ahead. Let's create a table. So you create table, employee ID. We're just going to send SQL to it. If you don't know how to do this, I do have a lesson on creating tables in SQL. If not, just kind of play along. If you're not sure SQL, you can go check out some stuff I've got on there. But what this is doing is saying create table. I'm going to name the table employee, and I want an ID, which is an integer, which is a number. I'm going to have an employee name, which is a varchar 255. It's a variable string. And then DOB, date of birth, I want a date. And that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying I want the name of my column and then what kind of value it's going to be. So I run this. Now I can go back into my MySQL and check it out. And if I hit here and refresh, now look, I've got another table. I got a table employee with ID, employee name, date of birth, what we just did. All right, now let's go ahead and insert some data into here. So to insert data in the SQL, we're going to use the words insert into, the name of the table, then values. Values, and then in parentheses, each value I want. So it has to match. If this works, if I'm going to add a value for each column. If you only want to add a value for a couple columns, what you would have to do is you can go here, and after employee, you just put in parentheses, and you'd have ID, imp name, and DOB. Now, if I wanted to get rid of the date of birth, I could just remove it from the values and remove it here, and it would only populate the first two. But we're going to populate everything in here. So, again, this is not a SQL course. This is just kind of pushing you through. So go ahead. We'll run this. Now, check this out. Now, I'm going to go into here, and I am going to say select star from. Actually, go ahead and get rid of all this code here. First, we're going to say use sandbox. Then we're going to say select star from employee, because we just sent data to it, right? So it should have something in there. We're going to run this, and it comes back empty. Well, why does it come back empty? Well, in order for this data to be saved, we have to commit the cursor. Now, notice I'm not committing the cursor. I'm committing the connection I set up here. So the cursor is what operates and sends the data. Then I'm telling the connection I want you to commit that last line of code. So once I hit commit there, and I go back and check and run this again, now it's in there. Okay? So let's go ahead now. We want to send more than one row. We can use what's called execute many command. So I'm going to put the query in quotes here, and I use these %S's, the same thing we use to print. I think I showed earlier how to print with variables. This is the same concept. And then we're just going to apply values. I apply a list of tuples. Tuples are all separated by a comma. And then I apply the execute many query and values, and then commit. And now if I go back and I check out my database, there we go. I got 4. Cool, right? All right. So let's try what we're going to do most of the time in a database here. Let's try querying it. Okay. So select star from employee, and that's going to send the query. Then I'm going to say I want that query executed. I want to put the answers, all of the responses from that, I want to put it into a list here. So I'm going to push the cursor. I'm going to use this thing called fetch all to send everything to this list, and then I can use a simple for loop to iterate through the list, and there you can see we've got my 4 rows. Okay? Because we just did this curs still knows it's this table we're looking at. I can run curs.column names. It'll give me the names of all the columns in case, because you see they didn't come through. But that's in there. And then finally, really simple, we're just going to do this, and we're going to put all this into a pandas data frame. Okay, so we go ahead, import pandas. We go ahead, we instantiate a list, and then for X in list, and again, we're looking at this list up here from our fetch all. I want to de-append, and notice I got a dictionary in here. I got the curly brackets, and I'm saying ID is, remember we instantiated 0 here in Python, so 23, 3, 5, all those, the first column are all going to be column 0. Name is going to be column 1, because that's the second one, and date of birth will be column 2. And then I'm going to put that list of dictionaries into a data frame, and it comes out, and there we go. All right. Now again, at the beginning, this is not a SQL lesson, so if you're a little shaky on some of the SQL, I do have some other SQL courses you can look at, and I will be building a full-blown SQL course in the future. But this is really simple, how to connect to a database how to connect to a MySQL database using Python. Again, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again. This is Analytics for All. If you like this video, hit the like, subscribe button. Leave me a question down in the comments. If you have something you want me to work on, I can build it out for you. I can make a lesson for you. I've done some custom lessons in the past. Again, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you again.